William Blake. The whole business of man is the arts, and all things in common. Ghost of a Flea. The title is funny, right? The Ghost of a Flea. Do fleas even have ghosts? And then, terrifying, grotesque. The third thing to note about the picture is that, for Blake, the ghost of a flea means the idea or principle of a flea. The principle of a flea, so far as we can see it, is bloodthirstiness, the feeding on the life of another, the fury of the parasite. When people call Blake a mystic, this is part of what they mean. He is interested in the ideas for which such things stand. For him, the tiger means an awful elegance. For him, the tree means a silent strength. Every great mystic goes about with a magnifying glass. He sees every flea as a giant, an ogre. Blake shows the best part of a mystic's attitude in saying that the soul of a flea is 10,000 times larger than a flea. All primary understanding of the art of Blake really turns on this, that the ghost of a flea is actually more solid than a flea. The flea himself is hazy compared to the massive actuality of his ghost. This is one of the great ideas in Blake, the idea of ideas. I must create my own system or be enslaved by another man's. Not interested in strict representational correctness, more concerned with bringing out imaginatively what an experience meant to him. In this, Blake is characteristically romantic. Believing in the centrality of the imagination, he believes an artist must reject the past and find his own way of doing things from within himself. Imagination versus reason versus nature. Vision. Experienced visions from the age of 4. In Blake's universe, vision is a term encompassing ordinary single vision, mere optical reality in sequential time, and higher forms that perceive things prophetically, metaphorically, imaginatively, and eternally. Blake created his own system of mythology, literature, philosophy, and art. His systematic creation informs and is informed by the ideals of the Romantic period. It's totally individual and totally integrates spirituality, politics, literature, sexuality. So it's really confusing. Blake's individual perspective on the universe, the everlasting gospel, was far from simple. Blake had succeeded in inventing, in the course of about 10 years, as tangled and interdependent a system of theology as the Catholic Church has accumulated in 2000. His biographer remarks on Blake's character, "You might call him a solid maniac or solid liar, but you could not possibly call him a wavering hysteric or a weak dabber in doubtful things." Blake, the radical. This philosophy was politically and socially radical. His idea that every aspect of life should be as integrated and as accessible to the divine as possible did not jive with his or her contemporary political reality. Terry Eagleton writes, "Politics today is largely a question of management and administration." Blake, by contrast, viewed the political as inseparable from art, ethics, sexuality, and the imagination. It was about the emancipation of desire, not its manipulation. Desire for Blake was an infinite delight, and his whole project was to rescue it from the repressive regime of priests and kings. His sense of how sexuality can turn pathological through repression is close to Freud's. The body in Blake. The body as a whole with parts that can operate separately from one another. Repression, division, sensation, as a conduit for sensation, which is access to the spiritual realm. It's particularly important to see the body as it really is, free from illusion and ideologies, to see that its roots run down to eternity, again integrating the real, individual, and divine. If the doors of perception were cleansed, he claims, everything would appear to man as it is, infinite. Political states keep power by convincing us of our limitations. When reading a Blake poem, the sense of vertigo caused by a slight change in perspective is often caused by Blake's attempt to recreate this infinite perspective, to move between speakers, feelings, and pairs of eyes. Much of Blake's imagined gospel had to do with the division of the soul and body into different parts, and what happened when they were reunited in various configurations. Bodies can enable intimate connection, yet they can also indicate the imprisonment of the human in the restriction and isolation of the individual body. Kristen Connolly argues that Blake ultimately comes to terms with embodiment through the romantic notion of sympathy. The physical body, though it binds us in muscles and fibers, also plays an important part in making sympathy possible. Therefore, by better understanding the isolation and limitations of our own bodies, we paradoxically come to a greater sense of sympathy for other humans, thereby strengthening our sense of community and the interconnectedness of human experience. The body of the text. Blake's preoccupation with integration extended to his texts themselves. As a style of illuminated hand-colored text means we can't separate his illustrations from text, or our imaginations of his written worlds from the physical reality of how he produced them. Reading songs of innocence and experience. Innocence and experience are contrary states, ways of seeing and dwelling in the world, but poems from either category are mixed in together, and qualities of both appear in each poem. Individuals in innocence are sustained by confidence in the redemptive presence of the divine, perceived as both sympathetically human and somehow nearby. Those in experience are profoundly conscious of the limitations of fallen life and its sorrows. Mixed forms. Critics cannot agree if their relationship to children's songs is ironic or sincere, if the songs of innocence are truly innocent or cynical commentary. Blake and romanticism. Blake's relationship to romanticism is all mixed up as well. G.K. Chesterton sums it up in his biography of Blake. It's common to connect Blake and Wordsworth because of their ballads about babies and sheep. They were utterly opposite. If Wordsworth was the poet of nature, Blake was especially the poet of anti-nature. Blake, I see in Wordsworth the natural man rising up against the spiritual man continually. Natural objects always did and now do weaken, deaden, and obliterate imagination in man. Wordsworth must know that what he writes valuable is not to be found in nature. On the other hand, Wordsworth had something altogether more positive to say about Blake. There was no doubt that this poor man was mad, but there is something in the madness of this man which interests me more than the sanity of Lord Byron and Walter Scott.